So I'd like to welcome you to the very first episode of, I'm not going to hover over the thing. I'm going to sit right here because this is where I'm going to be at the whole time anyway.
Makes sense.
This is called the Travis DuFour Show. Have you ever heard of maybe a Chris Jericho show or the Stone Cold Podcast?
No, never.
I don't have a moniker, you know?
You don't need a moniker.
Yeah. But I feel the same way. So this is the Travis DuFour Show. Easy to search, easy to find. And so I'm sitting here with ChrisGatton, and he has been an accomplished... I'm going to put you over for a second.
I'll take it, please.
I don't normally do this. No, I do this all the time. But if anybody's seen any of my matches, I put people over constantly. But ChrisGatton is he's actually an accomplished MMA fighter. He's dedicated his life, correct me if I'm wrong, to MMA.
Right out of the womb.
Studying multiple different kinds of fighting styles and stuff like that. And you're very accomplished. And as we're recording this, there's a entirely too heavy belt that you won.
You'll pull your shoulder trying to move that thing. And it's funny, this stays pretty much on the kitchen table. Sometimes it floats on the couch. I actually have my trophy that I won from a cage fighting in the bathroom. Some people decorate their walls with accomplishments. Fuck that. I just want them laying around the house.
What is this belt what's the title of it?
This is the 145-pound championship for the Hard Knocks promotion of cage fights. So the people who used to run the Tough Men. It's actually the first Martinsburg MMA event. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, hold on there. I have a question because from what I was told, if you do Tough Man, then you would kind of get looked down upon whenever you went to actually do a cage fight.
Well, Tough Man's so very different and
it's amateur.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, this was amateur too, and I can explain the difference there for, because I've had people ask about pro and amateur fighting, what's the difference there as well. But especially Tough Man, you get 2-minute rounds, just like boxing gloves.
These are guys off the street.
A lot of them just, if they have an affiliation, they'll ask what school do you train from? Who's your coach?
And they can lie.
Independent. Some of them, they can just lie.
I have a good feeling a lot of them are lying because you see these same guys stocking the shelves at Walmart, and they're fighting in these. It's actually growing up around here. You saw a lot of people just, I'm going to go into Tough Man, and you're like, wait, you don't train?
I hear a lot of that. People just do it on a whim. And to be fair, if you're going to, decide that you're going to get punched in the face on a whim, Tough Man's the way to do it. And I'm not shitting on Tough Man either. They make their money. They're a promotion just like any other organization that's looking to make money. It's not that they are doing anything wrong. It's just, if you are going to just, I'd like to get in there, I think I'm a tough guy. That's the place to do it. A lot of people don't train for it. You have 2-minute rounds because most people are so gassed within 30 seconds of it. And again, not everyone. I'm sure there's some people training right now and be like, shut up, man, I'm 7-time Tough Man champion in my division. I'm not knocking it either. I'm just saying that
I've never done it because I don't have the balls. So I respect anybody who would do it.
Absolutely.
And now, as far as this, you having a title for Hard Knocks, this is amateur? This is considered amateur as well?
This is amateur, yes. They give championships on the amateur level as well because most places do. Anytime you run an event, why are you paying attention to the main event? A lot of this time, you don't have name value or anything like that. So in order to kind of up the stakes without actually having to do anything, they're going to say, hey, this one's for a championship belt. And, they went all out. Look at this thing. It's got, fur.
It does look custom. I did not even realize that.
Yeah, it is. It's nice. Whoever they got it from is top notch. But it's just one of those things. It's just supposed to hype that excitement for the fight when these people come in and they don't know any of the fighters. Or if they do know the fighter, you're just friends and family. You're not looking to cater to friends and family. You're looking to cater to an event. So just like anything, that belt is meant to hype things up. Now they won't just throw it on anybody. They won't just be like, oh well, this is this guy's debut and this guy's had 2 fights. Let's just do that. Me and my opponent both equally had over 7 fights each. This was my 7th. So we got that main slot. We fought for a title because we had more under our belt. A lot of people were debuting on it. It was a fantastic night of fights.
Were people gambling on these fights?
I hope so. I really hope so. I hope there was like a smoky atmosphere and a bunch of Chinese fellas passing money back and forth and yelling my name in slang. I really hope there was.
Do you think people were betting for you or against you?
Well, I was the hometown guy, but it's...
Where was this guy from?
This guy actually came up from... I don't know exactly where he was from, but it was like 3 hours away because he rode up with some of the people who were helping set up the event. So they said, your opponent's definitely going to be there, because that's the other thing on amateur level that you're worried about. Last minute, you get a lot of people backing out. Because fighting...
Kind of like wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. But, especially with fighting is one of these things where you train for it, and the closer you get to it, it just... When things start to feel real, you get that fight or flight instinct. And a lot of people, they train really hard for it, and then it gets close to time, you get the nerves, and then you're just like, I can't do this. And it happens, some events put up like Mix It Up Sports does this thing where they put up people who are no-shows. Now, it's one thing to pull out from an injury. That's absolutely fine. These things happen. You want to try to train smart so it doesn't happen, because the worst feeling in the world is to train for however long. Let's say you only train a month and a half or anything like that for a fight, and then your opponent backs out. That's a lot of time and energy invested into it, and you can't always scramble to find a last-minute fight. So, but what Mix It Up will do is if you back out like last minute, like day of, 2 days before, anything like that, where it is going to be harder to find an opponent, they put on like a no-show list, and that way promoters around the area, if someone's, hey,
you're blackballed.
Exactly.
You're gone.
It's a great idea, because that is a shitty feeling. You would think it's almost worse to go ahead and go through with the fight.
Wait, has that happened to you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
My last fight for Mix It Up, I went through like 3 or 4 people in the last 2 weeks. Like, oh, this guy can't make it. Here's
not you personally. Your opponent.
No. I've never.
So
never
you
stopped.
have never.
Yeah, never backed out. The only time I've ever backed out is when they've mentioned, "Hey, do you want to be on this card?" And I'll be like, "I think I should be able to," and then I might let them know before anything's solid. Like, hey, I won't be able to because, I tweaked my back. I did this. I want to give it another month or so. But I've never backed out anywhere close to the deadline, because that's just a shitty thing to do.
And you're doing your research on these places, because if you show up and they're like, yeah, here's your opponent, it's a Taipei death match. Here's your glass, put it on your fist. You're doing your research.
Yeah. Well, sometimes. There's been times where I'm just like, let's see how it goes. I like the way that Hard Knocks ran their stuff. There was some things that they could have improved, but I don't know how much of that was impeded just because it was in West Virginia. For instance, thankfully, my fight, I didn't have to have like shin guards, because, man, it's really weird if you decide to take it to the ground, you have shin guards on. But like you couldn't kick to the head because it was West Virginia. And I was like, oh.
So no standing kick to the head.
No standing kick to the head. No grounded kick to the head either, for that matter. But at the same
that's more common.
Yeah, that goes without saying. But yeah, no kick to the head. And there was a moment where I was like, let's get this exciting, because as you know, in like one of my first couple fights or whatever, I threw the drop kick. That was one of the things. Was I had like a.
You really got to aim for the chest, because you're going to get disqualified.
Oh yeah, exactly. But yeah, I was, when I threw the drop kick in that one cage fight, it was like, man, this wasn't my round. I want to get it, I don't want everyone to watch my fights and be like, that was, it was a dud. So I was like, man, I got to do something exciting just to bring it back to my favor. And that's what I did. I heard the clappers. They had 10 seconds left. I was like, fuck it, let's do this. Boom.
I really respect that, because whenever I look at MMA, and the reason why I can't really invest myself into it is because I feel like the majority of the fights are, well, how do I say this? You just said that you wanted to spice up your fight.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of the fights that I've seen don't have that factor in it.
Absolutely. I can tell you exactly what you're talking about. When you get 2 trained athletes and everyone's climbing the ladder to try to be the top guy, you got a lot of people who play it safe, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you're talking about fighting in a sport that it's combat. It's sport. There's rules to make it safer, but it is combat. You are beating the crap out of each other. Now, you don't want to take accumulative damage to the head, so any way that you can get around that, if you're going to fight a little safer, maybe not pull the trigger here and there. It's smart fighting, but at the same time, it's not It's not entertaining. And that's the other thing that you forget is you do want to be the best fighter in the world. I'm not knocking that at all. I'm not saying that if that's your philosophy that it's wrong at all. But growing up as a professional wrestling fan and being in professional wrestling now, for me, it's one of those things where you have to realize it's a spectator sport. It's no matter how much you want to win and be better than the other guy, there are still people paying because it's entertaining.
Right.
So when you, like wall install, when you're leaning all your weight into a guy on the cage, not really doing much damage, you're just trying to drain him out.
Uninvested.
Exactly. You're losing people. Now, you might be winning the fight, but you're losing people, and you might argue, well, I don't care. I'm here to win a fight. I'm not here to entertain. Well, you kind of fucking are. When you talk about fighting pay, you're going to get paid for putting asses in seats. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but like a good example of this would be like for the longest time, John Fitch was very famous for blanketing opponents. You know, he'd use superior wrestling and just smother them, not really finish with a lot of submissions or knockouts or TKOs or anything like that. He would almost blanket his way through opponents. Now, John Fitch is a fantastic fighter. He has the potential to be very exciting. He showed that in an Eric Silva fight that he had. Even the BJ Penn one was really fantastic. But at the same time, it's kind of like, no, people aren't paying to see you.
Right.
So you can't complain about fighter pay if you're not there trying to make it exciting.
Now, guys like Brock Lesnar and Anderson Silva, why have they made the most money? Because in the fights, you see Anderson mimicking his opponent.
Absolutely.
Brock's interviews are great. This is what sells the sport.
It's what sells the sport,
right.
And so when you're talking about wanting to make a living off of it, sometimes you have to ask yourself what you can do to kind of put yourself out there more. Now, if you can't fight exciting, if you're just like, well, I'm not that guy, you know, I'm a good fighter, I'm skilled, I'm not going to put myself in a position where I'm going to get knocked out by some guy who threw a lucky punch because I was trying to do some kind of spinning tornado kick or something. At the same time, ask other things that you can do. One of the things that I always did, and I don't understand. You see a lot of it on the independent circuit, and I think that fighters could learn from pro wrestlers is the entrance. I see almost 98% of the guys on every card either come out to some kind of hardcore rap or thrash metal, something that gets them pumped up. They're coming out, they're screaming. It's good energy level, but it's not commercial. It's not, you hear a lot of these songs and stuff. The crowd's not really into it. I like to come out with something goofy.
What's your entrance music?
Honestly, I like to mix it up a little bit. Last time I came out to Godzilla by Blue Oyster Cult because I came out as I switch up my cage name, my nickname. I like to switch it up from event to event. But I usually come out with a steel chair. I come out with something that that really gets the crowd looks and then who's this guy? Who's this goofy guy? I've come out to pro wrestling entrances before. Bret Hart's entrance a couple times. Took a lot of inspiration.
Do you get a pop from the crowd whenever
you get? Yes. Absolutely.
That is amazing.
I get pops for it because people look at it and you get that sense of recognition. Someone grew up watching wrestling, hears someone's coming out to a Bret Hart.
They hear Bret Hart's theme music and one guy yells, "This shit's fake," and then they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, we are at an MMA
I've seen guys laugh and then turn over and whisper to their girlfriends why it's funny. Little things like that. Me coming out with a chair. I'll goof around with the doctor as they check you for anything. Make sure you have your cup before you go in. And I mess around a little bit. It doesn't take anything away from the fight. I didn't have to stop training all right, here's the antics I'm going to do that. I just went out there and just did a little bit of goofy stuff because half these people don't know me. So if I can come out and make them laugh or get them pumped up because I brought a steel chair out or anything like that, I just won over some of the crowd. And then that's in my favor, maybe, there's been plenty of times I was on the one, not this last one for Hard Knocks, but the other one for Mix It Up Sports that I was on. I came out with my Bret Hart music and stuff like that, it got a decent pop. One of the big things, I get Ric Flair chopped before I go in the cage and during rounds. It wakes me up. It always, every time, it does not fail. Every time I get chopped, I hear half the crowd go, "Woo!" Yeah. And it's beautiful. But
I need to come and see one of these.
Absolutely. I try to make it, something, again, spectator. But I had a guy come out to Bee Gees' Staying Alive, and I didn't know anything about this guy, but all of a sudden he was my favorite fighter, and he goes out there and he steamrolled his opponent, and I was like, yeah, I was so happy and invested and excited because he just came out, staying alive. It's little things like that. It can get it, and that's the other thing is you can bring headphones out. If you need that thrash metal song, this is what does it. This is what makes me, enter my zone. And
damn it, I need my thrash.
get your headphones on, come out to that, but let the audience hear something else.
Yeah.
Make them give a shit of who you are. And not just,
See,
generic fighter number 3.
If anybody's listening to this, you can take any of this as advice for pro wrestling. I mean, this is exactly what you want in our field whenever
Absolutely.
you're trying to wrestle. But now I wanted to jump into a little bit of, we touched a lot on MMA, and this is, geared towards pro wrestling. So I want to talk a little bit about your expectations whenever you first came into pro wrestling in 2012. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, or you can make your statement. Whenever you came into pro wrestling, you had a little bit of stage fright.
Yes.
For MMA, and is that why?
That is why I got. No, I don't want to say it's the sole reason why. When I was growing up, there was 2 things I wanted to be. The first thing I wanted to be was Godzilla. Okay. As soon as I kid you
without
not,
a doubt,
when we were talking about what do you want to be when you grow up? What career do you want? When I found out that Godzilla, like the old Japanese Godzillas, where it was just some guy in a suit, I was like, that's it. I'm gonna be Godzilla. I'll work on my roar and everything. And then the second thing that I remember wanting to be was a professional wrestler. I grew up very young age watching professional wrestling, and I got some for a younger guy. I have more knowledge of older wrestling than a lot of people. I don't want to say I'm not like a wizard or anything like that. I won't be able to hang with certain guys, like Mike Skills or anything as far as old wrestling trivia. But when I started watching, I had to have been maybe 4 years old and immediately hooked onto it, watching every event. And then I'd watch VHS tapes of older events because I just loved that style of wrestling.
Oh, who didn't? You go to that was one of the best parts about growing up, if you're our age, was going to the video store and seeing what they had.
Yeah.
1990 Royal Rumble. Haven't seen this one yet.
Is fantastic. Very, I love everything from the stuff that looks legit to the gimmicky stuff. I love every bit of pro wrestling. The pro wrestling world is just such an amazing place. It's the last form of real live theater. The way that plays were supposed to be. I mean, great. If you have a well-written play, it's good to sit down, shut the fuck up, and listen to the, actors. No one wants to pay ridiculous ticket on Broadway to hear some guy be like, "Boo, you suck, Macbeth." That's not what it's for. But in pro wrestling, it's encouraged.
Yeah.
Pay your ticket and be a part of it. I mean, you don't have to like every person in there, but man, that's where else can you do that? You're not going to the movie theater yelling at the screen. You can yell at the wrestlers. You can be happy for them. You can be excited. You can cheer them on. Do it. That's encouraged.
But don't put your hands on the wrestlers.
Don't you ever. I will tie you up into a pretzel.
You will get hurt.
But yeah, no, it got me in pro wrestling. Not only was it something that I kind of always had an inkling to want to do, and it just kind of got away because it was one of the I'll never be that way. I've always been a shorter guy, a smaller guy.
But you linked up with Robbie Page, and that's the same thing he has going for him. He's not the biggest guy in the world.
Cruiserweight, but man, the guy can go. The guy can go, and if I can start to get more of that Robbie Page physique, look a little bit more toned, like I belong in there, that'd be fantastic for me. But yeah, absolutely, I got it because my first MMA fight, I almost hate saying what my record is, just because that first one was just wow. It was awful. It was god awful. I had some jiu-jitsu training and stuff like that. I'd done stand up here and there, but I hadn't sparred with anyone in a while. I had been away from an actual martial arts gym for like a year and a half or so, and it was just like I want to do this on a whim. It was kind of like how most people treat the tough man. It's like, let me just do this. Let me get my feet wet and see how I do. And then when I got in there, man, it felt like I had cinder blocks for feet. I was just, I
remember you being very disappointed about it.
I shot from the outside for a double leg from like 10 feet out, and I never...
Who does that?
Nobody!
A guy in his first fight was stage fright. That's who does it.
Absolutely. The third one, I finally got kneed in the face, and don't remember anything after that, but I was aware enough to, like, my mouthpiece fell out. They went and got it rinsed off. I was aware enough to show the ref that I was still here. Oh yeah, nice that I didn't just pop it back in. But I was aware of everything the ref, was saying, or at least I looked like I was aware of everything the ref was saying. Next thing I know, I just remember kind of coming to and being like, oh, did the knee knock me out? It was kind of like one of those, like, whoa, that happened fast. Did the knee knock me out? And he's like, no, son, you got choked. What ended up happening was apparently my mouthpiece fell out. They got that washed off. they started us back on like a half guard position or whatever, and then the guy just swirled around in my back and choked me out like right after that.
You got one eye open, the other one's shut. Your drool's hanging out.
I'm okay.
He's
I'm
good.
Okay, guy.
Next round.
But yeah, so after something like that, it was one thing to lose. I didn't mind losing so much. I still had a great time. I got to watch the rest of the event. I talked to my opponent I probably badgered him for at least 40 minutes afterwards, just saying how excited I was just to finally be able to get in there and do it. But man, the stage fright was unbearable. So an opportunity to do pro wrestling came along.
Can you relate like the stage fright to like social anxiety or something?
Oh yeah,
like that?
yeah. I have all sorts of social anxiety. It's bad. Like,
so it was just crippling.
Yeah. Like I couldn't do anything. I wasn't me in there at all.
Right. You feel like you're put on the stage, everybody's watching you. You're like,
yeah. It's suddenly, it's not, it had been like a year and a half since I was in a gym, but even when you're in a gym, it's different. You're in there, there's all these sorts of things going on at once. You're just training to get better. You don't mind if you mess up here and there. So you get a little confident when you do all right in the gym, but it's not the gym.
Yeah.
It's a new environment. When you have everyone looking at you, there's not 12 things going on at once. It's all the lights are on you.
There's balls to the wall on both sides. Yeah.
There's announcers and they're saying your name and you're like, oh shit, I guess this is for real. And now this guy's in there to knock your head off. So, not the best way to learn that you have crippling stage fright. So I was like, well, pro wrestling, put me in front of people to where I have to acknowledge the people, where I have to, be under that kind of pressure, and maybe not lose my teeth in the process. And it all went from there, and man, I loved it.
Now,
loved every minute of it.
I think that you're an exceptional babyface. Now, in your debut match, you wrestled me.
Yeah.
And I was the baby face.
And that was interesting.
And you were the heel.
That was a very interesting dynamic. Yeah.
Which a lot of people say that whenever you're breaking into the business, that you should be a baby face whenever you start.
Yeah.
The heel's got to lead the match and all that. But as a baby face, I think that you excel. Now, in your first match as a heel, do you remember anything that was going through your head? The draw was shot. I know that. There was like 20 people there.
Yeah.
So
honestly, the only thing that was really going through my head for my first one was I wanted it to look good. I didn't want it to. I didn't want to pull the curtain behind anyone and have some kind of phony match or anything. At the same time, we
spotted out the whole thing.
Yeah, it was pretty laid out.
Was that an issue? Were you like trying to memorize the thing?
I just didn't want to flub up. So that was my big thing. Is I was going out there and just like, don't botch, don't you do it, Chris. If anyone messes up, make it Travis, so he has to go back and be upset at himself. I was like, I'm gonna do all my parts. But certainly I didn't really didn't have the energy. When you don't feel the crowd, when you're waiting for, all right, what am I supposed to do now? You're not in the moment. You're looking for a sequence, this
it's got to feel natural to you. It's got to feel real to you.
Absolutely. Because again, going back to that whole thing, it's a spectator thing. You got to please the crowd.
Yep. And so that was your first match. And then I think it was maybe a little bit over a year. And one of my favorite matches that I've ever had was with you at Pro Wrestling Showcase. And it was because, like you said, the fans, if they're not into your match, if they're sitting on their hands, you're not going to have that many memories. But from my memory of whenever me and you worked at Showcase, those fans were very receptive. They were very behind you.
Great crowd, Great crowd there.
Now, who has, which company have you worked for that you would say has the rowdiest crowd? And I think I already know, but go ahead.
Rowdiest crowd. I have to say my favorite crowd, because of how much they get into everything, whether they're for you or against you, is CPW at
Big Bear Lake.
Big Bear Lake. Oh my God! Last time I was there, it was fantastic.
Who'd you work the last time?
The very last time. Who the hell did I work last time? Wes Lockbaum. I think was my very last one here a couple months ago. But man, the crowd was so into it, they started banging their chairs on the ground. It sounded like a hailstorm outside. It was insane. But they
hailstorm
get
on the
so
outside, but you're inside, so it's deafening.
Deafening hailstorm.
You guys are trying to call spots, you can't hear shit.
They're like, what the fuck?
Duck the what?
It was just insane. And that was another thing that I always thought, because one of the things that I hate to do is I don't like to call a lot of stuff. Now
Sure.
I've gotten away. I don't like a spotty match either. I don't want to know everything that I'm doing out before I go out there. I like to know, how do we want to start this thing? What are we trying to get across with this matchup individually?
What is the story?
Yeah, what is the story? And a lot of people talk about that, what's the psychology, what's the story? But, certain things, you have some really ones that are obvious and written out for you, like the small guy versus the big guy, your David Goliath, and how you're going to overcome that. Those are a little more obvious, but sometimes it's the little thing like, if we're both technical wrestlers and we're canceling each other out, who's gonna go to the brawling style first to try to just get that one up on you and get that footing in the match, but... Pardon me, I just burped a little bit.
Horrible.
It's gaseous. Anyway, but yeah, so I like to set a good tone. I like to tell that story and make it different every time.
On the card, where do you like to be? Do you like to be near the end? So you've seen a couple finishes, you've seen a couple matches.
I like the two places that I like to be are. I'd like to be the beginning, the opening, because then you get to kind of set the tone for it.
They do say that it's supposed to be the best match.
Yeah, you get the pressure for it. Now, here's the other thing. You have to know your place on the card. I want to make an impression, but I don't want you thinking like the rest of the thing. Yeah, but did you see Chris do that,
Sure.
triple moonsault off the, which I can't do anyway because I'm afraid of heights. But, I want it to have a nice paced match to where it just sets that tone and it starts everything off on the right foot. If you have a great first match, even if the next couple matches aren't so, it gets that momentum going. Yeah. And that's what you want, that good momentum. So in a way, I like the challenge of that. On the other hand, I also love having like a match right after intermission because now, again, you get to...
It's kind of like the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
All over again.
Yeah, starting back over.
Get it back going.
Like you mentioned, you get to see what the different finishes were. You get to see different things that people did in the match. And you don't want to be the guy who didn't pay attention.
Yeah, give them something different.
And like, all right, well, they already saw this. They already saw this. What can I do to stick out? And
Canadian Destroyer.
There you go. Every time.
That's my go-to.
Yeah, opening spot, how do I get out of this hammerlock? Canadian Destroyer. Of course, why didn't I think of it? But yeah, no. So I like, again, being a guy who likes stories of matches. I love finishes. I love different finishes. In a way, I try to stay away from having a finisher in particular because I like that idea, like, if I'm going to finish a match, I want you to, at least if you're looking at like a YouTube video like playlist of my matches, I want you to realize, oh shit, every match ended differently.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
They're not all the same.
Finishing moves are not bad at all. They're great. They're unique to pro wrestling. And if the fans are familiar with you, it gives you that sense of, oh no, here it is. Boom, there's a stamp on it. And then if somebody does have a false finish, like if it's a big main event and you get that false finish, it pulls it out of you. You're just like, what? That was supposed to be it.
Right.
And it gives that extra layer that, almost get like a second wind of excitement. But, I wrestle a couple different places. They don't know me. I'd rather just try to finish on something, I love different kind of pinning comedy. I love a small package, a schoolboy, crucifix. I love little things like that. And I love different submissions to finish them. I got plenty in my arsenal where they could look good enough.
So you like to have a submission finish. See, I don't do that.
Ideally, coming from my background, and I love the catch-as-catch-can roots of professional wrestling, so I love a submission
finish. And that's great. If you're on the card, I don't have to do it.
There you go, see? And then we get the different dynamics. You get to see different things to the show.
But just in the last year, I have found myself in a position where, specifically at Phoenix Pro Wrestling, I'm main eventing every show. So that is a completely insane dynamic because you're the last thing. You got to do something that they haven't seen from the 5, 6, 7 matches before.
And every event.
Yeah. But that's something that, I kind of thrive off of. But I had a point with this. Now, you were in was this your first main event at West Virginia Wrestling whenever you wrestled Steven Broussard? Was that the first time that you main evented?
Yeah, that was the first time I was actually main. Yeah.
Okay, and whenever you approached that match with Steven, now Steven, for anybody who doesn't know Steven Broussard, he is like 280, 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Is that being nice?
I think that's.
He's a big guy.
Let's say that's a roundabout.
Sure.
We're rounding.
He's a big guy, and he's about your height, which is, I'll guess, 5'9"?
That is also rounding up very generously. No, I'm 5'6".
Okay.
So, yeah.
He's maybe slightly taller. So that's the main event of the night. Now, you bring a lot of credibility to the table. And Steven Broussard brings a lot of character to the to the table. He's one of my favorite workers ever. Solid guy. Now, whenever this match was over and the event was done, we all came to the agreement that something just didn't click for that match. Now, as far as a main event, what would you have went about differently about that match?
I think the only difference...
Well, tell everybody, what the match was like.
All right, I think where it didn't quite go exactly, which I would love to wrestle Steven again. I didn't have a problem with the match per se. I liked it.
Sure.
Steven's a great guy to have in the locker room too. Fantastic guy, fantastic worker. I think it was just a little bit of vision. Like I envisioned it one way, and he envisioned it another way,
and that happens.
And it's again, I don't think that it was a bad match. I didn't walk away. I don't remember feeling disappointed in it per se.
Yeah, it was a very slow tempoed match from my memory.
And different places, I'll try to wrestle differently depending on what their audience is, as you should.
And you felt like you had to because this is the main event.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Now it's like, all right, well, now I'm main event, and this isn't a guy who I could pick up and just start slamming around or anything.
Right.
And sometimes you get that moment where it's like, let me see a suplex. Let me do a suplex, And then
you're not opening the card. You're closing it. It's a different dynamic, different psychology.
And it's very different when you talk about, when you have a bigger guy striking. Because it's like, well, I can't pick this guy up. So I either have to ground him and work a body part, or I have to strike at him. Being in the MMA background, though, it's tough to switch to pro wrestling striking because it's way different. It's got to be very showy. You got to really open up and boom, have a nice noise. And it's not like I'm going to start jabbing him and working combos, go to the body, work the leg again. And I'm not gonna start dancing around and using striking like that. So yeah, I think it was one of those ones where I wanted it to be a little bit more serious. I wanted it to be a little bit more. Have that legitimacy, because that's the one thing that I know is like, all right, well, if there's anything that I'm going to bring to the table, I can make it look legitimate. I can make it look nice, and and that's what I had been doing at West Virginia Wrestling. So with him bringing the character to there, I wanted it to fill gaps where it was very hard fought contest, and it didn't quite fill the gaps like I wanted to. I think we were on two different pages with trying to be legitimate and then trying to entertain. Yeah. We'll get the formula right another time for sure.
And there you have it. Whenever you have two good hands, you can't always get the best product out of it. And that's just the bottom line. And that's what makes pro wrestling so hard, Not dissing Broussard or you. It does happen. I've had plenty of shit matches. Plenty. I can put out a DVD. The worst of. But
I believe you could too. No, but yeah, you get different people together, and it's like a couple different puzzle pieces. Sometimes they go together, and sometimes it was on that particular day they go together, and other times it's the opposite. Sometimes you have sometimes you have two crappy workers who just whatever it was they clicked and they had a good match. Sometimes you have two good workers, and whatever it was just like, I kind of expected more. And I think that's what it was. I don't feel like that was a bad match at all. I feel like I kind of expected more from it.
Sure.
And that's what I'd love to have the opportunity to do again, because I've had plenty of times where first time I wrestled someone, it was like, and then the next time there was improvements. And I'd have to say, every time I've had a rematch with somebody, that's what happened.
Our first match, our next match.
I've always had that, where it's like, all right, we didn't click the first time because it's the first time going out there and getting used to how the other guy is going to work, and then after you've already been there once,
right?
Or maybe sometimes it's just the fact that you had that match and you were like, you know what, we can do better, and it's that what motivates you to have a better second match. So, in my personal and humble belief, that's what it was. Is I just we didn't quite click the first time like I wanted to, and I think that we would absolutely knock it out of the park the next time.
Now, these last couple years, there's been one company in the area that has been consistently a good draw. And they've had multiple different ventures that have been successful for them, bringing in names and stuff like that. And that company is the Elite Pro Wrestling Alliance.
Absolutely.
Now, at this last event that they had the Invitational Battle Royal, where they put over... Who did they put over?
R.L. Stein.
R.L. Stein.
R.L. Smith. R.L. Stein wrote the Goosebumps books.
This is one.
And they put him over.
R.L. Stein. Okay, R.L.
He's
Smith.
changing business ventures.
Who's a blue chipper, young guy.
Yeah.
He's been working for a couple years now, and he's gotten his big opportunity. But it was also a big opportunity for ChrisGatton. So you went up there. Now, is this your first time going up there?
This is actually my second time. My first time was they did another battle royal it was a few years ago. Yeah, I guess now it was like 3 or 4 years ago now that I think about it. But they had a battle royal. They needed hands and whatnot. I was like, well, yeah, it's a nice company to work for. I'll go ahead and do my best, hopefully make an impression.
Now, how receptive were they to you? Did they know that you were coming up?
This time around, yeah. They
was it kind of like
nice.
Oh, they contacted you?
Yes.
Okay. So is it kind of like one of those things where did it seem to you like they had to approve you if you did want to come up and do it, or was it?
Yeah, because
really invitational.
If you look at Elite Pro, man, they got a solid roster. They always have they have the capability of bringing in names. They put on consistently good shows. They're making great draws from it. Fantastic company run by fantastic people. And it was one of those things, like there's plenty of times where I feel like I could have maybe, I'll reach out to George and see if he'll put me on the card. But I knew I wouldn't, I'm not ready. Because,
So this is a company that you feel like you need to be at a different level before you go up there.
Yeah, and part of it is, again, you have to have all the aspects. You can't just be like, well, I can put on a solid match. You have to have everything. You have to have the look, the charisma, and all that. And for the longest time, it was like, man, I'm still finding myself in these other areas. I don't want to just go in there. Because you also don't want to go in there and make the wrong impression, and then it's like, oh, yeah, we'll call you. And then you're like, wait, no, you haven't seen my good stuff yet. So the first time I had a battle royal, I think they just needed extra hands. Probably got on there through my friendship with Robbie.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was a great experience. It was fantastic. This time around, I was contacted, so that was awesome because I was really you'd like me to be in it. And I know it's a bit just a battle royal, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I'd like to go in there and show you all the different improvements that I've made, because I've made a huge amount of improvements the last couple of years.
Yeah, and any time that a promoter is actually contacting you in 2016, that doesn't really happen too often. No. You have to go and make your rounds and make your contacts, and this promoter contacted you.
Absolutely, and I don't want to make it sound like I had to check my schedule and he contacted me.
Make sure I don't have a hard knocks cage fight and defend my belt.
Oh, precisely. But yeah, no, it wasn't exactly like he's like, Chris, we need you to come in here. You're the final piece. It's nothing like that. But at the same time, he was trying to put together a battle royal of good workers to try to help shake up the roster a little bit and bring new people in. And he thought of me, and just that thought alone was flattery. So there's other things that I know George has always had, like a lot of bigger guys on his roster. So beat me. I usually stay in fight shape. So I'm toned, I fight at 145 pounds. The plan now is, man, I love professional wrestling. I want to take it to the next level. I have to have that look. So just recently started
the
gym.
What is the next level to you? Is that elite?
In the immediate future, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Elite.
Well, what else? It's a good question. Right?
That is a good question.
See, that's what I always ask myself.
I very much roll with the punches. Like some people, they have to have that end goal, which is something ridiculous. Like WrestleMania, that's where it's gonna be. Yeah. And it's like, well, sometimes if you set that goal too high, and then you have to do little things like, a great way to help motivate yourself is ask yourself every day, what is there something I can do today to get me closer to that goal? And sometimes the answer is just, no, not really. I mean, what are you going to do today? It's a Thursday. You have to work. You get off at 5. Right. You're going to try to contact a promoter. Patch me through to Vince. Yeah. So, I don't like having those goals where it's like, yeah, this is exactly where I see myself, and I'm going to give myself this many years to get there. I'm very short-sighted. I roll with the punches. A lot of my life is just fallen into my lap. So, yeah, I just go with what it is. So, right now, it's like, man, if I could work for Elite, that'd be a great company to work for, great crowds.
It sounds to me like you just want to work more.
I just want to work more. And I'm already feeling myself get better, and I just want to keep that going. I want to keep that ball rolling,
Well, good for you, man. Because there's plenty of people who, work for one company their whole career, and that's good enough for them. But that's easy.
You gotta
That's
go
too
out
easy.
there. Yeah, it's too easy. You know the people, the crowd's coming. It's the same people. They know who you are.
Yeah,
and
you're the big fish in the small
you only
pond.
have to do the same. Again, going back to like different wrestling styles, it's exciting knowing like, all right, this weekend I need to be a little bit more of a high flyer because that's what gets over. This weekend I needed to be more about psychology. I need I need to do less but make it mean more. And this next weekend I need to look as legit as possible. I want it to look like a shoot fight. And really bring the energy that way. I like that dynamic. I like trying to do different things at different places. And there's nothing wrong with working for a consistent company. I love CPW. Anytime CPW runs a show, I will work for CPW. Love it. I love the way everything's run there, but I wouldn't just be content with just wrestling for CPW. I wouldn't just be content wrestling for just like Elite. I'd like to work as much as possible around the area and just get better at different things, and that's the only way that you're really going to grow as a pro wrestler.
And your ultimate goal is to come challenge the champion over there at Phoenix Pro Wrestling.
Well, yeah.
It sounds like that's what you were leading to.
That I don't think I'm ready just yet, but I'll get there. So. I'll get there. Again, I don't want to say WrestleMania in 7 years, so I'm not going to say I got to take it to DuFour.
In 2 years.
Not just yet. Perhaps one day. Yeah.
So just recently, me and a car full of guys, a car group, if you will.
A car group, yeah. I know the type.
We all went down to Tennessee and we got to wrestle for a branch of the NWA, and it was really cool.
Yeah, that is a little bit frustrating. Just off a quick little note there, because I was also invited to go down.
Yes, you were,
and I couldn't, and here's why. And the other reason why I wanted to go down was I was going to have an opportunity to see my good old pal Jake, and I love Jake.
That's Jake Edwin.
Jake Young or Jake Edwin or just plain Jake or Obe. The guy Jake. He is the Kevin Owens to my Chris Jericho. Yeah, he'd probably say it was the other way around.
You spent a lot of time with him breaking in.
Absolutely. Yeah. We just clicked.
You guys were a tag team. Shit.
Yeah. We talk about our good old days as a tag team. We probably tagged twice, and then we had the idea that we were going to tag more, and it just didn't work because we just split off at that point. But we always talked about the tag team stuff. Even now, we'll just pop up. Hey, I got a great idea for a tag finisher. I'm like, yeah, lay it on me. Can't wait to apply this when one day we're back in the same state. But that was the same weekend as the Hard Knocks fight, and it was kind of like, as I would almost give anything. That was probably the toughest choice.
Look at this beautiful belt you got out of it, though.
And well, the other thing was there was historical stuff to it, because as long as I had been training in MMA and all this other stuff, being in Martinsburg's first MMA event, I didn't find out till the day of we were the main event. I knew it was going to be for a belt, and I was like, that's pretty cool. I'm just happy to fight on Martinsburg's first MMA card. That's kind of a big deal for me. That's my hometown now.
Home base.
It was a little depressing the other day. I thought about it because I always considered myself a Marylander through and through. But
I know you talk about Maryland way too much.
I have a
dirty
weird
place.
Pride with Maryland. I don't know what it is, but
horrible.
I love being from Maryland, and everyone who knows me knows that. But
I'm from Maryland too.
But I found out the other day. I did the math, and I've lived in West Virginia longer. Than I lived in Maryland. I was like, no, that's depressing.
You're old, Chris. You've been around here for a long time.
Too long.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was like, I gotta be in Martinsburg's first MMA event, and then it ended up being the main event and winning my championship there, and it was bittersweet because on one hand I was so happy about it, on the other hand it was like, yeah, this is a weekend that I missed, going down there wrestling for a different company and seeing Jake at the same time, so it was bittersweet. So
as far as like a faraway place for you to work, like I never thought that I'd wrestle in Tennessee. 10 years ago whenever I started, I didn't think that I would be going that far, like taking a 10-hour car drive to places. Now, is there like a specific place that you'd like to touch base at?
Yeah, Iceland.
Kentucky. Iceland.
No, I don't know where that came from.
Is there wrestling in Iceland?
Maybe. Who can say? No, you know what would be great? I would probably, again, I have shorter-sighted goals than a lot of people. I don't think of a big show that I'm going to be on or anything like that. Again, I'm not not WrestleMania or anything.
I want to wrestle in Virginia.
I don't know. For some reason, like it'd be huge for me if I wrestled in like the UK or something like that.
Okay.
You know, a base of where catch as catch can, and you know, because probably my favorite wrestling style to watch is World of Sport. Loved it. Loved watching the fluidity of the moves and the legitimacy there. It was fantastic.
Have you ever heard of Doug Williams?
Doug Williams?
Yeah.
Wasn't he the quarterback for the Washington Redskins?
He is one of the more famous wrestlers from the United Kingdom. One of the matches he's known for is in 2002. He wrestled Eddie Guerrero in just a clinic.
I would. Part of me wants to be like, oh yeah, absolutely, Doug Williams, and then
you should
try to fake my way through that. But at the same time, I also want to be called out if I'm like, oh yeah, Doug Williams, and then you're like, no, yeah, who is he, Chris? Oh yeah, UK wrestler, obviously. 'Cause that's what we're talking about. No, he was the Washington Redskins quarterback, and like, oh well, you know, I mean. That too, but I'm sure somewhere there's Doug Williams, and he's no. So honestly, I can say no, but I didn't want to fake my way through that.
The only reason why I even bring him up is because before I came here, I was trying to get inspiration, and I was watching UK wrestling, and I was watching Doug Williams wrestle.
That'll do it.
Maybe you should give it a gander.
I certainly will. I promise you that. I will tell you this. Almost anyone who ever talks wrestling with me, if they tell me, hey, you need to check this guy out, I will do it. It might not be that evening. But I will. I put that name in my phone. I'll text it to myself. I will look people up. Yeah.
You gotta look up that James Ellsworth guy, man. he's from around here.
The first time I ever met him, I wrestled on a Chambersburg Fair Carnival card with him. Didn't get over huge because I don't know. It's a little weird sometimes. It's hit or miss. Carnival shows. Sometimes you'll get people who are just like, oh, there's wrestling going on over here. Yeah. Other times, they're carnival crowds. So they're just like, oh, this is interesting. And they'll sit there.
Back to the Ferris wheel.
And but they don't know, like, you try to get them to hate you or to love you, and they're just like, yes. So they'll clap. Sometimes. Again, not every time. But, like, a couple of the fair shows that I've been on, they'll clap for things. They'll give you that seal of approval, but they're not... Boo, they're not like, yeah, you suck, or yeah, get him. they're just like quietly sitting there, and you could be like, your hometown football team is awful, and they're like, yeah, good show.
I'd have to agree. Yeah.
but yeah, so they're a little weird. So I wrestled
nice
on a fair show.
Yeah, too nice
with their funnel cakes. I wrestled on a show like a week before he had his thing with Braun Strowman, so that was interesting, just seeing that and then seeing that blow up, and I was just like, I just saw that guy at the fair.
It could happen to anybody, literally. I'm telling you, anybody. My, I just greeted my postman. He was delivering my new mouse for my laptop. He could get signed.
He could be the new Bobby Heenan.
You have to be in the right place at the right time, and it could happen to you.
Absolutely.
You don't need... Okay, I'm going to stop it there. I'm just going to switch the subject. But, wow, the first episode, we're 47 minutes in, and we're going to take a short break, and the break is right now. I'm just going to take a sip of my drink.
I took a bite of my yogurt, and here's my water.
And we're back.
I'm not ready.
Sorry, hold on. Chris is drinking. Dude, you practiced that.
I did practice.
I understood everything you just said.
At least 15 minutes before you pulled up, the two things that I did was I changed my cat box and Febreze. I'm going to count that all in one thing. And then I was practicing talking with the water bottle. I was like, there's going to be a point where he's like, we're taking a break. I'm going to sip my water and be like, no.
Now,
and man, did we pull it off.
With great success. Now, the reason why I brought up the NWA a second ago is because down there, they had two different buildings that were their buildings, and they were totally decked out in professional wrestling, everything. The ring never gets taken down. It's always there. There's entrance stages for each one, professional sound system. Locker room is amazing. It's just... I wish that we had that here in Martinsburg, or at least close by. Yeah. Now, we have the House of Pain in Hagerstown, but, and that is, I do train there. I go down there most Thursdays nowadays, and they have a great group of guys. And the history at the House of Pain in Hagerstown, on the walls, you could spend all day, not even lying, reading the articles and looking at who's been there.
I've been there once, and that's what I did for a good portion of it. I was just looking at the walls, and I was just like,
yeah. And it's amazing. And I just wish that we had a place in West Virginia where the State Athletic Commission is they don't govern pro wrestling. So I wish that we had that here.
Absolutely. That would be fantastic. Are you asking me to back you for something?
Yes.
Or, I
want to know how
money. I don't have the money, Travis.
What's your credit like? That's what I'm trying to find out. We can get a loan.
My mom has a shed.
Okay.
We're talking about venue right there. Now we just need the rest of everything. But I got a shed, and I've heard of more upstart companies starting from a shed than anything. It's a place. You can.
Where do you think I came from?
A shed.
Yeah.
You got to plant the seeds. See, everyone wants the tree, but you got to plant the seeds and you got to water it, and then the tree sprouts up. It doesn't just come overnight.
You cut the tree down and then make the shed out of the wood.
And then
I know exactly what you're saying.
And now we got a shed.
Yeah.
So 1 foot in the door, Travis. Now we got to put the other foot in front of the other and hope that the door's not in the way.
So titles in pro wrestling, have you held any yet?
In pro wrestling, no.
Just quit.
Just
end it.
I might as well. It's like, I don't think this is going anywhere.
You're going on year 5, nothing.
My britches don't stay up for anything. And if I could just have a belt, if I just had a belt. No, I have held trophies. I have held Grand Prix cups.
That's the promoters that can't afford belts. That's what they do.
Absolutely it is. But you know what? You can drink out of them.
Oh.
I drink out of mine regularly. It's in the cabinet right now. If I want a little Chardonnay in the day, I had a long day at work, pour a little bit in the pre-cup and sip away, and my troubles, they disappear.
Now, whenever you have to wrestle multiple times in one night in tournaments like that, that's just a bad night, isn't it?
Sometimes.
It can be, because
it sure can be.
You tweak your knee in the first match, you scrape,
like,
you scrape your ass or something, and then you have to work again.
Yeah.
I mean,
it can be disastrous.
Yeah.
It could also be loads of fun where you're just kind of
But you were in a tag team tournament is what we're talking about, right?
That was a tag team tournament. And
have you been in a singles tournament?
No.
Okay.
No.
Now, I know a thing or two about singles tournaments.
Let me hear it.
Because in 2013, I won the Chase for the Chalice.
Was that what that was?
Uh-huh. 4 matches in 2 days. And then that Sunday, I went and wrestled for Elite. Got my ass whipped by OGB. I'm talking whipped. There's still marks on my back from his hand.
Jesus.
But it's just satisfying having that many matches. 5 matches in 3 days.
Well, you know what? Here's the other thing that kind of goes along with that. There's been nights where after I wrestle, it'll even be like a good match. Like it's not always like a disappointing thing where it's just like, I won more out of that. Sometimes you do get that, but sometimes I'll have a great match and I'll be satisfied. And now I'm just like, I want to wrestle again. Let me get back in there. I don't care if all the fans have left at this point. Let me just go in there and run through a match real quick. I am new. I get made fun of for leaving my wrist tape on. Sometimes for days. Sometimes it smells, and you just have to deal with it. But no, I leave my wrist tape on a good bit because I took it from Punk first, but he said that he got it from Dusty, where it was like they didn't want to necessarily take their gear off right away because they wanted to enjoy the moment. They wanted the moment to last, and as soon as you change out of your gear and stuff, well, then it's kind of over. So I always, and the same thing I do with my fights. When I get done with my fights, I leave my hand wraps on, and the next day, honestly, I have had to take off hand wraps only when I went to play video games, and I couldn't quite do it. Like, it was just thick enough to be irritating. I was like, all right, it's time to take these bad boys off. So yeah, it gets weird. But yeah, I like to leave that on because it's a weird feeling when it passes you by. You wait all day for it and stuff. You're excited. It happens. You're either dissatisfied or you couldn't be happier, and then the moment's over, and you're just like, I really wish I could wrestle again.
It is kind of sad. But you don't want to be following anything that CM Punk has done because you're going to wake up hating everything about wrestling.
Ouch. Yeah.
Just hating it.
Yeah.
And on that note, we're pushing an hour. Let's make it to the hour mark, and then we'll take it home.
Can do.
You're really used to people telling you, take it home, Chris. Take it
all
home.
the time. They're just
ding, 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 take it home. Like, I have not done anything yet.
God damn it, let me work a little.
But one thing that I did want to touch on that I remember, I thought about it today on my way here, and...
Is it my body?
No.
Because the answer is no.
The answer is, maybe. Now, a couple, like my first big injury was, there was this guy, I'm not going to say his name, he was booked to not win against me. And I'd been wrestling 2 years at the time. And I was on my hands and knees, selling, getting up from that. And this dude kicked me in the ribs as hard as he could. Broke my ribs. Broke two of the. I'm not a scientist or a doctor. Either or. But he broke that shit. And I just remember for the next month and a half to 2 months while everything was healing, there was so many circumstances that you don't realize when you need your ribs. When you're sleeping, when you're taking a shower.
When you're breathing.
And I'll tell you this, I was down with my brother at a car wash, and we were washing his car.
As you do.
Exactly.
Sometimes at a car wash.
Insane. And there was some guys that were like down a couple of the lots down, and they were like talking shit. They were saying something to my brother. Now, my brother's not a small guy. And he was like, hey, man, we might have to,
scrap.
Give him the business. And I just thought, I can't fight a child right now. Anything. Like, if there's a strong wind, I'm in intense, excruciating pain.
I know how that is.
And that's just why, in professional wrestling, whenever somebody decides to go that extra mile and, do something the shoot way or something like that, that pisses me off so bad.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no sense in it. And here's the other thing. It's stupid being the tough guy in the pro wrestling world. Now, it's one thing, I think everyone should know a little bit of something. That's one of the things I love about pro wrestling. I love the catch as catch can roots and how you realize, no, look, if I want to do this, I can make you realize that even though I open the match with this arm ring or this hammerlock, I will put you away with this. If I have to. So if anyone, if you get that rowdy guy in the crowd who thinks, I could jump in there and beat the shit out of a wrestler and have something to brag about, I will put you to sleep with my favorite lullaby. It will happen so fast, and you won't expect it from someone my size. And that isn't at all like to toot my own horn.
That's facts.
Like that. If you don't know anything and you face someone who knows how to control a body, doesn't matter how big you are. I'll put you down, and then I'll show you what your ACL looks like. But it's so stupid when I hear about the tough guys in pro wrestling who take liberties, because it's like, well, no shit, you knocked a tooth out. I'm open for you.
Here's my face.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to talk about, if you really wanted to be a jerk, is you get a little bit of wrestling knowledge, a little bit of like grappling knowledge in you or anything like that. And then when the guy's supposed to feed to you, just put on a sleeper hold and legitimize it and put him to sleep. There's nothing to be gained from that. He gave it to you.
How do you feel about strong style with these guys who are specifically, they get in the ring and any shot they throw is connecting like a mofo?
I have two sides to that. On one hand, I like it myself. It's a little bit fun. I don't mind. I never got angry getting hit. Like, you can hit me, you can bust up my mouth or anything like that. I won't get angry. Now, I might intensify the level that, like, oh, okay, we stepped it up to the next one.
We're kicking it up.
Because I'm not going to start, like, slapping my leg on you if you're legitimately just punching me in the face. Like, let's keep this going. Like, I can take the hit, but now I think, all right, well, now the intensity's up, so I have to up my intensity as well. So you'll get it back. But at the same time, you have to agree to it. If you're one of these guys, you're going to get a reputation. If you're just the only strong style guy in an organization, no one's going to want to wrestle you. Because it's just like, I don't feel like getting my ass kicked tonight just
it's
because.
It's not the territory days. We're not making that kind of money anymore.
Exactly. So it's kind of like, all right, well, if we're not really going to get paid for it, I have to work tomorrow, you asshole. I have another day job.
We understand this isn't ballet.
It's not ballet, but man, we can at least avoid chopping our heads off.
I'd like to wrestle next weekend,
Absolutely. So if you have a guy who agrees to it and you both are just like, you know what? Yeah.
You two are working each other all the time.
Exactly. Let's have that, and that's, an aspect of the show that the crowd will be able to look forward to. It's going to it's going to differentiate itself. It's going to stick out, it's going to pop, that's fine. But if you're going to walk around and say that you're the strong style guy, if you can't just make it look good on somebody else, no one's going to want to wrestle you.
Yeah,
you're
sometimes
blackball yourself from everyone else,
And there's in a lot of the cases, whenever these guys are throwing, like most of the time, whenever you throw a real punch that connects really good, it looks horrible. And it didn't even look that good.
It won't make a sound and anything. So you get all the bad side of it. Oh yeah, my lip is busted. I kind of bit my tongue in half. But the crowd's just like, well, all right. I've seen people get punched in the face. They just watched a whole card of people punching each other in the face. But those guys didn't get black eyes. So it's like, what the fuck did you do that for?
Now, okay, before we leave, I will tell you one story that this conversation reminded me of. I was working Joseph Schwartz. And it was the first time I worked Joseph Schwartz. We did a deal in our match where we were both down and we were both coming up, exchanged some punches. Well, the first punch Joseph throws at me, he whacks me. And it makes a horrendous noise. And the crowd's like, oh my God. And the first thought that came in my head was, did I screw up somewhere? What have I done to upset you? And so I gave it right back to him, man. But then his next punch was lighter, super light. And I was just wondering about that. So whenever I saw him in the locker room, I said, what the hell was that about? Because I was thinking, I'm a bad mofo because I hit him right back and he stopped doing it. That's not the case. Right here was Joseph's thinking on that. If you throw your first punch like that, you crack them, in a safe place. Every punch after that looks just as good as your first one.
Yeah, they get that first impression, and that first impression lasts.
Blew my mind.
So,
and from that point on, I was whacking people.
That's one of the things I love about pro wrestling is you'll get those different philosophies from different guys. It's like, this is why I do this. And they're not always like, that's the right way. There's so many different ways of doing it.
Exactly.
There's no real right way. So you can pick up little bits of information.
These kids that are getting out of training school who are in a training school, I'm not talking about anybody specific, but whenever you get out of training school, just remember that whenever you wrestle ChrisGatton, you're not going to have the same experience with Travis DuFour because it's two different worlds, and that goes the same for everybody you're going to wrestle.
Two different worlds.
Don't hit me. I will sell for you.
I'll make it happen, baby. I will say, one more thing I do want to add to that because it just kind of goes in there. I was having a match with Simon Shadows. Probably one of my favorite workers to work with, probably because he's had most of my matches with me as far as singles go. But it's fantastic. We both bring something out of each other. He's really probably the one who really helped me the most with finding myself as a pro wrestler. Not taking anything away from Robbie. Robbie really gave me a solid foundation to work on. But as far as like how I was before, and then when Simon got a hold of me, talked to me about different reasons, like this is why you do this and all that stuff.
Simon's dad is Shane Shadows.
Shadow, the Shane Shadows.
Whenever your father's a promoter and has been promoting and has been wrestling, for that matter, since the early 90s, of course,
you're gonna pick things
Simon Shadows, very intelligent guy.
Great mind for it. And he liked wrestling me because I have that sense of legitimacy, but at the same time, I'm a smaller guy. So we can have good, solid matches, like good back and forth. Well, there was one match in particular that I recall where I went to kind of slap him in the face. I was trying to intimidate him, bully him around a little bit. I do believe I was the heel. I should have been if that was the case. So yeah, I'm almost positive I was. But I go to slap it, like he's on the ground, he's on his butt, he's working his way up. I go to slap him, and I'm like, I don't want to slap Simon. This is a nice guy. So I kind of slap my forearm, like on the inside, that when I go to do it, so I barely made contact with him, and it gives it a pop. But it was horrible. It made like no sound, and it looked awful. So as soon as I did that, I was like, shit. So I just reared back and slapped the shit out of him. I had to. I was like, they just saw that. Before they get a chance to process that and be like, oh, that was a shitty slap, I immediately gave him a good one. So
what was he thinking?
I'm trying to. Now he's never. He's notoriously. He'll take if somebody gives him a stiff shot, he will give it back to you with everything that he's got. He's busted noses and stuff like that. He's not a reckless worker, but man, if you do something and you did, it'll come back to you. He'll give you your receipt.
Sure.
But
which is great. I actually look up to him because of that.
I don't believe he gave me a receipt just because of he doesn't know if I'll take it to the next step or what. But there's been a few times where he's popped me with a good jab, busted my teeth up, and I just thought, like, this is great. I'll start, like, swishing my saliva around with it, and later on in the match, I'll be like, and then now you can see that there's blood in my hand. Just give the crowd a little something extra. If it's there, I'm going to use it. So I don't believe he gave me a receipt for that one, but I don't want to say it was owed to him. But it's like, okay, well, I kind of earned my little spot to slap the shit out of him here.
A good rib that you should do on Simon is if have some kind of spot where, like, he does something to your forehead, like just take a DDT or something like that. Roll out of the ring and cut the shit out of the forehead. Just cut it wide open.
And just look at him all bewildered, like a little bit of that. Yes. He might be in a blackout rage kind of moment.
Great rib.
I'll put that in the notebook.
Well, this was a great experience, man. Thank you.
Thank you. This was fun. This made my Saturday worth getting out of bed because sometimes, brother, when the road hits you hard, I can't.
I know that better than anybody.
No. This has been fun. This was a fun little Saturday venture for me. When you mentioned it, I was like, I'm honored. That's fantastic. I'd love to do it. So yeah, man, I appreciate you having me here at my house.
We've learned, yes, it's a beautiful home, and we've learned a lot. We've grown from this experience.
We laughed, we cried,
and that's it. So this is the Travis DuFour Podcast with a very creative name and very creative guests, and just expect just pure creativity here on out.
Can we cuddle now?
Yes. You have a great night, everybody.